sometimes you look around, you might feel a little bit hopeless or feel like you don't know how you're going to make it, especially if you're a Black woman. So I'm reaching back into these historical fiction novels and these nonfiction books to help us see what they did, what our ancestors, and ancestors seems like, generations ago, but I'm just talking, the previous generation. What did they do when they were up against racism, like in your face racism, when lynchings were still happening? They had far fewer opportunities than we do now. Both of my parents were born during segregation. Both of my parents were alive when there were coloreds and whites only signs. Both of my parents were born when they had to go in the back door of places. I'm Tieska Jumbo, and today I am giving you a brief introduction of my newest book series. So I'm reading The First Ladies by Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray. This book is about the relationship between Mrs. Mary McLeod Bethune and Mrs. Eleanor Roosevelt. It's January 2026, and it feels like we're living in a dystopian novel or a dystopian movie. In movies and books, you see that the apocalypse has come, or there's been some major technological destruction, or something happened, and everything is just in ruins, and people are trying to figure out how to survive. Now, that's quite dramatic, perhaps, to how we're feeling right now, but so many things are happening. Last year, over 400,000 Black women were removed from the workplace, whether by layoffs or the government shutdowns or voluntarily because things got too crazy and their mental health wasn't worth staying in the place of work. And just wars and rumors of wars, all kinds of things are happening all over the place, and right here in the United States. I'm in a chapter now. It's 1930, and Mrs. Bethune is having a conversation with Mrs. Roosevelt about how they can partner to prevent lynchings from happening, because in that period, over 4,000 Black people had been lynched. So I'm so enamored. Like, from the first chapter, I have been enthralled by Mrs. Bethune because she stood her ground. She stood 10 toes down in all of the scenarios that she was in from the time she was a little girl until the time of her death, because she knew who she was. She knew what she was passionate about. She knew what her purpose was, and she knew what needed to be done in order to advance the entire community. So she wasn't selfish. She wasn't focused on her own personal gain or the uplifting of her own family. She was concerned about uplifting the Black race in the United States, and it was just incredible. I want to read a little bit from the first chapter because just the very beginning caused me to to write in my book. So she was invited to a gathering put on by the elder Mrs. Roosevelt, which is Eleanor Roosevelt's mother-in-law. And this is a gathering of the most prominent American women, and it's in a social setting. So it's at the elder Mrs. Roosevelt's house. And she invited Mrs. Bethune because she is one of the prominent women in the time in this period. This is 1927 in New York. And when she gets in there, the other white women in the room are giving her the cold shoulder. She walks past them and they drop their voices to a whisper. They have just made it very clear that she is not welcome there. They don't know why she's there. Now, the Roosevelts obviously invited her, so they treated her much differently. Even still, Mrs. Bethune was undeterred. So I'm going to read a couple of different passages. When I step into the drawing room, the gleaming chandeliers, the velvet burgundy drapes framing the large windows, the deep chintz sofas, and a cracking fire offer a warmer welcome than the women inside. Unfazed, I move to the walls covered with bookcases. Glorious leather-bound volumes line the shelves. How much my curious students at Bethune-Cookman College would enjoy and appreciate a library like this. I peruse the bookshelves, noticing that the conversation dips to a whisper whenever I skirt close to a group. As I draw near women I recognize from my position as president of the National Association of Colored Women's Clubs, I smile and nod, but I only occasionally receive a nod in return. Most often, my acknowledgments are met with steel-cold glances. Funny how the same women who talk with me about the advancement of women in a formal meeting space open to whites and Negroes pretend not to even see me in this social setting. Instead of allowing this smart, I read the titles as I survey the books, a biography here, a novel there, a historical study in between. I'll read one more. I am left alone once again and find myself facing a cluster of 3 women. I can imagine their thoughts, wondering what on earth I have in common with the society matron, mother to former Assistant Secretary of the Navy and failed vice presidential candidate Franklin Roosevelt. He'd been considered a promising politician on the rise until polio felled him 6 years ago. But I am not here because of him. The women and I catch one another's gazes, and I smile. When I'm rewarded with cold shoulders once again, I resume my perambulation, letting my favorite walking stick lead the way. So I had a couple of questions, so I'll show you when I am interacting with the text in this way. So it's something that I'm reading because I really want to absorb it and internalize it and understand and consider it. I take out my pen. So you can see that I have written in the margins, I've underlined, I've got questions. So this is the way that I interact with the text. What about you? Do you write in your books, or do you feel like this is a sacrilege to deface your books, or do you maybe you use flags? I didn't have my flags when I started, but I'm going to go back and use flags to organize my different thoughts because I plan to do this series. So I'm curious, what do you do when you've got a book that you really want to internalize? So the question I had was, how old was Mrs. Bethune in 1927? Because she had such surety about herself. She had such grace and such confidence, and she knew her purpose. She had such purpose, so it enabled her to stand her ground in the face of adversity in 1927. I also wondered what she'd already accomplished in 1927. So those 2 questions are really easy to answer. But the observation that I made is that she moves with ease and confidence, which I have said, and she didn't let race impact her sense of self. And then the final question I asked is, why are some able to do that and others not? So in 2026, we're still talking about race, obviously. It's still an issue, especially here in the United States. And I wonder, why are some people of color, Black people specifically, able to move as though it doesn't matter, whereas others, it becomes all consuming and it hinders forward progress. So if you have a thought about that, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you want to read this book along with me, I invite you to join the Reading Lounge, my reading club platform, where we will get together and talk about these books, talk through what it is that the previous generations experienced, what they faced, and how they were able to be successful in spite of real limitations, legal limitations, cultural limitations, sometimes geographical limitations, and how they were able to move forward in spite of all of those things. And then take that, what we learn from their past experiences, and apply them today, so that in the face of tyranny, in the face of people trying to reverse things and taking us back to this time, how we can continue to move forward. So I would love for you to join me in this conversation. I would love to hear your thoughts about how you interact with books, and hear your thoughts about the topics that I've brought up today. So leave me your comments, like the video, share it, subscribe, and stay tuned to the next video.